So we're running a little late. I apologize, but I'm going to call to order the February meeting of Rose Valley Borough Council. We had an executive session before the meeting to talk about a tax appeal and a few other real estate issues. And with that, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first on the agenda is approval of the minutes for our January meeting. Paula, I can try. There's some open seats up here too if you want to move up. So first up is approval of the January meeting minutes, which Paula distributed via email earlier. Are there any comments, questions, or corrections to those minutes? Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries 7-0. So now that brings us to public comment. For anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on any items either on the agenda or off. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment?
Hi, Judy Gibson. Nice to meet you. Some of our neighbors of the school are here looking forward to an answer to the complaint that we made at the last Borough Council meeting about 15 School Lane and the parking lot here, and the questions we posed about to Royal Croft. Okay, we're neighbors of the school, looking anxiously forward to hearing the response to the complaint that we made about 15 School Lane and the parking lot there, as well as questions about the school's potential acquisition of 2 Royal Croft. Thank you.
Sure. So the mayor and I met with the president of the board of SRV as well as the head of school at SRV a couple of weeks ago at this point, to find out particularly their plans for 2 Roylandcroft. They conveyed to us that their plans were to keep it as single-family residential, which it is currently zoned, and to rent it out. We suggested that they put that in writing to the different residents that have reached out to them. I don't think they have done that. They have told us that they are planning to have a meeting with all of the residents somewhere in the borough. Has that been scheduled?
Yes, it's next Thursday.
Okay.
At the school.
At the school, great. So I would certainly not hesitate to voice your concerns about both 2 Roylandcroft and the parking at 15 School Lane at that meeting. We have looked at our zoning ordinances and are deciding what to do about the parking at School Lane, and I think part of what we do is going to depend on how that meeting on Thursday with the residents go, whether they can allay your concerns or not. Larry.
Larry Tudis, 9 School Lane. We have a communication from them yesterday regarding that meeting. They are not planning to discuss any or disclose any of their plans for those lots. They just want to hear our concerns.
That is what they told us. They said they wanted it to be a listening session, which the mayor and I both conveyed we thought was not the best course of action, but it's their meeting to run, so.
We would prefer it to be a listening party.
Agreed, understood.
And I did invite them to come to this meeting and tell us what their intentions are regarding 2 Roylandcroft, but they said they prefer to wait till after they meet with the neighbors.
Kyle Sperry, 19 School Lane. It seems like what they intend to do with 15, I don't understand why the borough is not enforcing the current zoning ordinance. So that seems to be decoupled from what they plan or what they want to do. So I'm here to kind of understand what is the borough doing about 15
Well, option A is we wait until after you have your meeting and see if you guys can come to some agreement, because the borough doesn't take anybody to task if the neighbors don't complain. Like, let's say you have a shed that's within 20 feet of your property line. The borough's not gonna go after you if your neighbor's not complaining. And I think during the pandemic, they started parking some cars there, and there was a little noise back then, but it kind of calmed down, and neighbors haven't complained since then. So that's why we haven't that's why we haven't addressed the issue of the parking, because we haven't really gotten any complaints. Now we've gotten a complaint. We could wait until we have this meeting. Next Thursday, you guys have this meeting, see if you can work it out. You can tell them the Borough Council is just waiting to see how your meeting turns out. Otherwise, they're gonna say, this is not an acceptable use. That was our thought. We could say tonight that, we're gonna do something, but we thought it's always better to let people try and work things out first before we go in. So good luck with that meeting. They did not invite the borough, just the residents on the lane.
They asked us if we would like you and Matt, or Matt at the meeting. They did ask us.
I'm happy to be there if you want me there.
Do you want to be there?
Sure.
All right, Matt, you're invited.
Okay.
Should I come too?
Tuesday, yeah.
Can I get invited too?
You're invited.
Okay.
But we believe the meeting will be on school grounds. It will not be in a person's home.
Okay. Kelly?
Hi, I'm Kelly Caulfield. I live at 25 Crisis Lane. I'm back again about the roosters. Just wanting to see if there was anything that did it ever come? What happened?
No.
It went to the EAC and then it went back to the board and I haven't heard a thing.
So, at the Borough Council's meeting in December, we had a draft ordinance that I had prepared and circulated. There was an expressed interest that some people had that they had not had a sufficient opportunity to study the ordinance and comment on it. And one representative of the community said they would be willing to invite the chicken owners and rooster owners to get together and see what their comments were. At the December Borough Council meeting, we agreed, and I among them, to defer a decision on publication of the draft ordinance. Because the way it works, Borough Council first has to decide whether to publish an ordinance as something they intend to adopt. And then there's approximately a 30-day period for the public to see the published document. And then at the meeting that allows, after that opportunity for study of the published document, then the community can come and oppose or support it, and Borough Council can vote on whether to adopt it or not, or to defer adopting it, or to amend it and republish it. So instead of voting at our December meeting to decide to publish it in its present form, we decided to give an opportunity for chicken owners, fowl owners, to comment on what they felt were best practices. Now, the draft ordinance had 4 substantive sections. One section banned roosters outright with a 2-week notice for removal of the rooster, and then a penalty section if that was not done in a timely fashion, with escalating penalties. That's how that ordinance, that section was drafted. The council, and I can't speak, the sense of the meeting from my perspective was to invite comments on 3 other sections, not on the section regarding roosters. the position that I certainly expressed, and will express again right here, we have heard a great deal of comment about roosters, and that's, speaking for myself only, a political judgment balancing out noise issues and ownership issues of your property and where to draw the line. And we've heard a great deal of debate and comment on that. And I'm always eager to hear more, but I personally have made up my own mind on that, and I think many members of Borough Council have. So we were not inviting further comment on the rooster ban component of the ordinance, but we were receptive to, again, I was, and I think other members of council were as well, to getting commentary on the three other components of the ordinance draft, which I'm going by memory here, is number of fowl per acre, the best practices for enclosure, fencing and a coop, and best practices for pollution runoff. And on that issue, the draft ordinance was, which I drafted, was mostly patterned on existing ordinances from Media or Swarthmore. And it seemed appropriate in my judgment to allow further comment from rooster owners if they felt instead of X numbers of fowl per acre, it should be X plus 1 or X minus 1 or X plus 2. The primary issue brought to council was the rooster issue, not best practices in the absence of roosters. So the theory was that at this meeting, we would get a report from chicken owners with their views on best practices for those things, but not acknowledging the freedom to raise again the issue of roosters if they so choose. And then there was a request that they have additional time until our March meeting. And, you know, I think a reasoned position could be that we started this in, I think, June at a Borough Council meeting, and we decided in December to give people until February, and then we got a request for an additional month. And is that a reasonable request or not? On the other hand, we've had a borough that survived for over 100 years without a rooster ordinance, and we're all trying to get along. My understanding is there are no present roosters to be dealt with except perhaps one or more at the school, but no residential roosters. Certainly if there are any, I'm happy to hear about it, but I'm not.
Well, spring is coming, so, and Easter where they get their chickens and their things like that. But one of the things I wanted to bring up was that I sat at that EAC meeting and I loved what you proposed, and then the other things were coming up about other fowl and how there's some houses that have quite a few fowl in their yard, and so it evolved from there. My problem was the roosters, but then listening to it and saying that, you know, we should have some kind of ordinance for people moving into Rose Valley and knowing that, okay, we're allowed to have chickens. It needs to be by this much, by this much, by this much, and you can only have this many. And I thought that was a great plan. I had a friend in Todd Morton who called me and said, who on your lane is causing all the problems with the chickens? I just had somebody come to my house telling me that someone on their lane is trying to ban chickens and roosters or no, just chickens. And I started to laugh and I said, that's me. So what do you want to talk about?
But
And
you're
she
not,
was
but you're not trying to ban chickens.
No, I'm not, but I said my problem was the roosters. But what I have a problem with is somebody's going around trying to rally up all the chicken people and be like, oh, they're doing all this stuff, you need to come out, you need to do this, they're trying to, you know, make it so you can't have any roosters. Like, how did that get to that after the nice EAC meeting I sat with you? And then all of a sudden, you know, you put it back into Borough. First Borough Council punted it to you, and now it's being punted back to Borough Council, and we're still waiting. Sorry.
Well,
I know it's not you, I'm not trying to put them as.
I can't explain how things get described by other people. But I can tell you that the draft ordinance is, and if I haven't sent it to you, I'm happy to send it to you, but it's very simple. It says no roosters with penalties under certain timetable. It says X number of chickens or fowl per acre. It says yes enclosures and a coop. And it says no polluted runoff.
Great, I think
Now,
that was great.
yeah, and
So why is someone going around riling somebody up? And I can tell you who it is later, I'm not gonna dime them out.
well, I don't know if the word riling people up is, I'm not, the goal is to give people an opportunity to be heard. At least that's my personal goal.
Yeah, but it's been going on since June.
And I hesitate to say this, but I think maybe I've spent more time on roosters than any other human in the borough. So I have written back to, I hope everybody who's emailed me, and I've gotten emails, and I've attended meetings and so on, and drafted the ordinance. So I'm well aware of that. I'm also aware that this is a matter of I was not anticipating this, a huge amount of energy and investment is held by some people on this issue. And out of respect, I personally am prepared to give them another month. I've said that on March 2nd, or March 3rd, which is a Monday, I need a written report with any proposed changes in the ordinance and the reasons for them, and then I will take that into consideration in what I redraft for the borough at our March meeting. So as far as I'm concerned, this is gonna be voted on, or at least it's gonna be on the agenda for a vote at our March meeting with a specific content prepared and taking into consideration what people have shared on March 3rd. Sorry for the long comments.
Any other public comment? David?
David D. 8 School Lane. I think Matthew mentioned that the school had said that if they buy 2 Rollingcroft, they would rent it out. Does the borough have any short-term rental ordinances? Are there any restrictions? Could it become an Airbnb or some other sort of rental facility?
No, you have to have long-term rentals, like years.
Okay, so there's not, it's not an Airbnb.
It's not an Airbnb.
Great, thanks.
Yes?
Hi, I'm Hillary Hughes, 19 School Lane. I just had a quick question. You mentioned earlier that at the meeting with the school, we could advise them of sort of what I believe we're likely to hear later and regarding their use of 15. And I'm just wondering, they had a surveyor out today surveying a lot, so I'm wondering if that has been communicated to them otherwise.
I'm sorry, if what has been communicated to them?
The borough's position on the use of 15.
It has not, because we just got the solicitor's opinion on it. It's conjecture, but my guess is that the surveyor was out there in connection with, they're doing some campus master planning right now. So perhaps it was related to that, but I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right. If there's no other public comment, I'd like to take something out of order here and move it up from finances, which is the Rose Valley Folk amusement tax relief request, since we have representatives of the folk here tonight. So let's turn to that item now. Gina, you were here last month to make a request for relief from the amusement tax that the borough assesses the folk every year. And I know you provided some information to us, so do you want to walk us through that?
So, I'm just what you have here is what I've handed out.
Just speak loudly.
We can't hear you. Sure. Is this louder? Nice. So we just handed out our P&L and actual versus, our budget versus actuals over the course of 2 years, right, from 2023 through 2025 in our budget. Also, you'll see from 2022 through 2024 our account balances. So what we're looking for is, like, during the, so just as a statement, during COVID, we we were basically shut down from rentals. We also saw a decrease in our account balance, and so what we learned from that lesson is that we need to have proper account balance in case another epidemic occurs or there's some catastrophe or some reason. We also know that we have a lot of competition with other wedding venues, as well as we're not seeing the same return on rentals like in the hot summer months as either. So we're seeing some trends happening that we have to consider for the future for the sustainability of the mill. So if not a 1 year, we would like to actually for the future have an ordinance such as the pool does, so that we can continue on with doing these projects that we shared, projects that are to bring us up to code, projects that are going to allow us to be competitive with these wedding venues, such as we had to put off the men's room as just a small example, because just needing money, but now we know that in order to stay competitive and have all the communities come here, we need to have the upkeep here. So that's what we're looking for.
So you'd like to be permanently,
Yes.
basically, you're the only ones left. Hedgerow got out of the amusement tax years ago when they came up 501c3. The pool got out last year because they don't make money. They need to replace their pool. And you're having less rental income, more expenses, you have a lot more competition.
Yes.
And I know, I
And
used to
things
be.
are more expensive.
I used to be the rental chair of the folk, and during the summer, we would rent it out every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, every weekend, all summer long.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Kelly Caulfield, who's now the rental chair, and you have like 2 rentals in July and August.
No, August is the Saturday, every Saturday is rented. There's 1 or 2 in July.
Okay.
We're finding that the reason they're not renting in July and August is because people don't want to get married in churches anymore. They get married outside, and nobody wants to hold a wedding in the middle of July and August in the meadow.
Right, it's too hot.
That's why it's too hot.
Yeah.
So that's why we're not renting as much. That's what our caterer says. She's finding it harder to get rentals. And we've even given a discount.
What about the
July.
total number of rentals for the year? Does that mean people are just moving into the, shoulder months?
Yeah, like all May is booked, all June's booked, all September's booked, all October's booked.
But-
Most Friday, Saturday, and Sundays.
But
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but, yeah, like all the Saturdays in August and maybe a couple Fridays, but, or Sundays, but not everyone like it used to be. But it also was like that, Bill, when COVID,
Well, COVID
it
was
seemed to be the only place that could still hold a wedding during COVID, because we could do a lot of it outside. So,
And then, of course, we can't move too far into the winter because the weather gets cold and nobody gets married in December or
right, and
January,
nobody wants to do it
February, or March.
outside either, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any questions you have?
Well, I was gonna ask, one of the things that was raised by different members of the board at different time was that the sense was that a lot of the rentals are from out of borough residents.
No, there actually is a lot more residents than you would think. I mean, we definitely hold a month, 1 Saturday a month for members up to a year. And a lot of them are booked, and there's actually, I think in May, we have 3 member bookings.
Okay.
in May.
Rich?
Hey, Matt, I'm treasurer of the firm, and I don't think it's so much the rentals, we're talking about a 100-some-year-old building here. We have electrical needs to be updated to become code compliant. We have the roofs that are leaking, the pavilion out there needs to be reparked, or the walls are gonna fall down. We're taking down the air raid side of it. We're looking at between $80,000 and $100,000 in additional expenses just to maintain this building for the next couple of years. The back wall, the shed is falling off. The bridge across to the Merritt Meadow needs to be replaced at over $100,000. So I don't think it's so much what's coming in with rentals, I think it's what we see going out just to maintain the building that's this old. And, yeah, we can do a little bit of increase in rentals, but that's not gonna help us to take care of maintaining the buildings, the soul that a lot of people use. The borough offices here, the EAC, the borough councils here, the Boy Scouts are here, in addition to the weddings and everything else. I think it's not so much income as what we anticipate over the next 4 to 5 years, just going out just to maintain this building so it doesn't fall down.
And that's what we shared.
Yep,
with
yeah,
the
we
project list.
did get that via email. Does anybody have questions?
Sure, I'll ask a couple of what are member dues? It looks like it's roughly less than $100 or more than $100 a year.
John, we just introduced 20% last year.
Thank you. That's good. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Last year, we
Seems
went
like-
20%, they ended up for a while, so we increased them 20% last year. So it really isn't reasonable to try to increase them again. And even with the dues, with the members, it only comes out to like $25,000 a year.
Right, which, on one hand, is a lot of money, on the other hand, it seems like, what are people paying? In dues, $100?
That's $100.
120, 60.
I mean, it's a lot of, $100 is a lot of money, but I think that the people who use it, case can be made that they maybe can, be more involved in the,
I've also
upkeep of the
increased the
building.
member, amount, when the members rent the old mill, if you're not a member of the old mill, you can pay $5,500 for a Saturday night, just to rent it. That doesn't include the caterer or anything else. Members were paying a lot less, but I raised that, well, the board raised it last year, to help to accommodate, because we weren't making any money, like, we're not even breaking even. So now we're at least breaking even because you are a member and you're paying your dues, so, now when you rent the old mill on a Saturday night, it's $2,500.
Well, the spreadsheets you have here indicate you guys did well last year.
Our commissions are higher, but like Bill said, we don't have every
You're
single.
not operating in a negative, you're operating.
Well, it's only $10,000, $15,000 positive,
Yeah.
which isn't gonna help when you're talking $80,000, $100,000 going out a year.
For upkeep, for maintenance, for the projects.
Every year? Would that be every year? Those projects, a lot of them are one-time projects that would happen, you would hope, as soon as possible, or this year?
Okay, so do you happen to have a copy that we shared?
No, in the email, no, I don't have a printout of that.
So you'll see that there are projects that are scheduled that are the highest priority
Mhm.
from 2025 through about 2035.
Okay, I
Okay.
will look at it more closely.
And they're based on, when was the last maintenance done on those items, and when is it coming up again?
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And then we have and then we have a category of what can we do to improve
Mhm.
the facility to stay competitive, okay? And those projects are also mixed in there, and,
To come up with the annual, needs.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
sure.
Matt?
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I'm trying to sort of do my homework quickly. I just got a copy of the revenue, profit and loss budget, versus actual for, fiscal year July 23 through June 24, and then I guess a separate one for July 24 through January 25. And I apologize in advance if I've missed, because I mean, I just got these when I sat down here, but is there a provision in either of these budgets to set aside money for capital improvements?
So I'll do my, first off, I'm Jim McGaffin.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
So, I'll do my best to try and answer part of that question. So, you'll notice if you look at our income in that graph, we have more income in the bank this year than we ever had before, because we're higher up there. It says on the, board in charge of buildings and grounds, which means, the person who task out and the maintenance done on this building, on the board. So we knew after last year's study, they created that long data list, that we had needs greater than we could actually meet. As a matter of fact, we're saving our money this year, and not really doing a lot of the one or two things like planting flowers in the gardens or doing a significant amount of painting on the walls. Because we would like to be more competitive this year. We're a caterer, we have things planned, like we have some code compliant issues for electrical, replace the carpet, put a wood dance floor in the facility. Things are gonna hopefully help us get more rentals here on a regular basis. We do not have a dollar value to set aside every year, other than that we're trying to work out of that budget and hold our savings to that minimum value of 1 year we learned during COVID, which was about $150,000 in our savings account. Just in case we prove it for failure that we would lose a year for flood, for another COVID, for some other component for income, so that we would not have to, as an organization, either find out an emergency loan or find a way for us to declare bankruptcy. Right? We're coming on something to solve it. So I hope that answers the question.
So, if I heard you correctly, there is no provision in the budget for a set-aside for capital improvements. And there is this list of projected capital improvements that add up to approximately $1 million in round numbers over the next X number of years. The amount of taxes that we're talking about is $13,000. We had the same debate with the pool, which resolved itself in a manner of speaking, I guess. I'm just trying to understand
So I guess-
what.
I think you're trying to lead us to the answer, and I think we would always say to you, we've already seen the answer. We know our membership dues have to go up, we just raised them by 20%. We know our rentals have to go up, so our income stream has to go up, and our costs have to go down. So we have been moving to move our income up. We're also asking at the same time to see if we can get relief from you to help some of our costs come down.
Okay, and in turn, we had this debate with the pool. My memory is imperfect. The pool basically said they can't afford to pay the amusement tax. They're gonna have to replace the pool, and I asked, as I recall, like, well, will you commit to putting this money that we're waiving for taxes as a set-aside for capital improvements? And at least in my memory, which is imperfect, the answer was, well, no, we'll take care of it. Just don't charge us the money. And we decided to say okay to that. I didn't feel that seemed to me like asking for a tax break without committing to using the savings for the things that were needed. So that's why I was asking about a budget line item for paying for these capital improvements, and whether or not the money that you're asking to be forgiven for some period of time will actually be used for the things that you have planned for improvements. And if there's no line item in the budget already, that it's like, I'm confused by that, with all respect.
So there
Because,
is.
I mean, this is $1 million you're planning to spend over the next 8-9 years, and we're not seeing a set-aside in the last 2 years.
So Leonard, there is a line in the budget for interior, exterior maintenance and repair of
That's- but-
20,000,
But that's not improvements, that's maintenance and repair.
which is most of what they're talking about on
Okay,
that list.
that's, okay, that,
That's also, okay, sorry, Joe. You're also looking at a current budget, and also next year, you have to have in line items for capital as well, not just the operational budget, but capital.
I say again, I'm sorry.
We'll need capital budgeting within our budget for next year, on top of the operational budget that's listed.
Well, that, I would have, again, I mean, you guys, I'm not, I'm just asking, I mean, like, I'm just trying to understand why that wasn't there already for the last forever years. Because, I mean, you always have to set aside money for capital improvements. That's like depreciating your asset, because there's always expenses.
I think that the money they make, I think that's what they're trying to set aside. Like last year, they made, what, $22,000 or something? That's gonna go towards capital improvements.
And the world is full of organizations that engage in deferred maintenance because they need the money today. I get that. So I guess I'm really looking to the future. I'm not trying to debate the past, but the plan for the future is to have a set aside for these necessary capital improvements, of which this money for the amusement tax would be included.
Part of it.
Yeah.
I guess I wanted to really start off by thanking you folks for all the time and effort. It's an important organization, so that's should have been my first kind of response statement. Who actually owns the property, and what is their role in this?
The Rose Valley Folk owns the property, right? Is that your question?
That is my question,
The
but
Rose
I don't
Valley
know
Folk.
that that's the right answer.
It is the right answer. They own the
Rose Valley
property.
Folk own it.
You're gonna start to build a property for rent.
Just saying.
Build just
Well, you're talking about the borough office rent? The
Or
folk was,
meetings or
the folk was kind enough in the
Do we
past.
start renting it to everybody who wants to use this
If
building?
they need more money, yes.
Well, the folk and the borough entered an agreement where you agreed that the borough would help you, I think, acquire Escherick furniture if you forgave the rent for 10 years, and that was like 5 years ago.
Yes,
So we have that agreement in place.
that's right.
When that agreement expires, then it says something about what the rent's gonna be, but that is kind of set in stone for until that agreement expires.
Did we answer your question? Did you-
I think so.
Okay.
Now, the revenue that the folk generate for the borough, the 13,000 solid, if that's, set aside and say, how do we make up that $13,000? Or said differently, doesn't every taxpayer in the community have to generate, I guess, a higher tax bill, to make up for that revenue?
I think that's true. We
Yes.
have to probably raise taxes, but I'd say a large number of people in the borough are members of the Rose Valley Folk, so it's benefiting them. And we really want the folk and this building to flourish and survive and be here for the long term. We want, like the pool, and hedgerow, we want to help these survive and be okay. So it's the residents who are benefiting. They can have Boy Scout meetings here, they can have Valley Voices concerts, they can have a variety show. So they get a lot of benefits from having the folks. Their taxes might go up, but the folks gonna be okay.
Yeah, there are times when I try and reconcile, excuse me, I'll just pass.
Any other questions for the folk?
Could we get a copy of your balance sheet?
Well, this is kind of has their balance sheet. I mean, here's for last year.
And there's a P&L.
Is that what you want? That's the end of June 30th.
I'm sorry, you probably said this before, but I just wanted to make sure I got it right. The set aside that you want for your reserves for emergencies, not the reserve for capital improvements. Your target number for that is,
I'm sorry, one more time.
how much do you want to set aside for emergencies in terms of a reserve?
We figured about $150,000.
150. And does this say that you have 187 now? Is that number?
At the end of, that's as of 6/30/2024.
Okay, now I just wanted to make sure I heard it and
Yeah.
see if I got those numbers right. So you're good in terms of your reserve. You have a little surplus there to go towards, as a first step, to go towards either, your capital improvements.
That's correct.
Great.
I heard some adjustments are being made in, like, I think you said plantings and some other things to try to bring some costs down this year. What about your member events? It looks like a pretty big line item. Are you asking the membership to, you know, contribute by asking a little less of the organization?
Couple different things there. So we have an entertainment committee, and we have volunteers from the membership that also help out with parties, so we establish a budget. So we're much more aware and communicate that we try to find the best way to entertain, but on a budget now, okay? So before we would blow the budgets that we were given for the events, and now we're no, we can't do that anymore. We have to stick with what we're planning, okay? That's number one. Number two is then, we don't have to use the caterer that's here, let's say, okay? So we're now, this is new, we are now venturing out, trying to bring different caterers in that are less costly for the events. So that's one initiative that's we've made this past 6 months to a year. So that's how we've focused on member events.
Okay.
Besides raising the membership.
All right, appreciate that.
Yeah.
Also, if you notice on the two budgets, on a year-over-year basis, member event admission fees budgeted 25% increase. So we are charging more for members to participate in the events.
And I
Good,
will have to
thank you.
say, you know, for members that have been members a long time, you know, some of that was a rude awakening.
I'm sure, I'm sure.
So, but we had to navigate that and just explain ourselves, you know, because after COVID, things were just really just sort of hit a wall, you know, as far as what expenses and supply chain and whatever the things that we came up for. And then when the difference between Donald Catering and then our new caterer too was a big change for the members.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So,
I'm gonna jump in now on this topic. I'm curious. I guess there was a shift in I'm Aaron Childs. I live here on the lane. Interested in what happens with this pay on weekends, on occasions. But anyway, it seems that there was a change in the weather when Connor Catering left. Yes, is that he generated plenty of revenue to keep this place moving? Make this not a question, huh? That's a question.
Actually, there's more coming in now than the change daters.
Interesting, okay,
Our commissions are higher
okay.
with less rentals.
Which I appreciate.
know.
Although, you know, seeing it from this angle, I understand it takes revenue to keep this place running, and I'd rather see this place running, so. It seems to me that the caterer who's been brought in lately is not as effective as Don Connor, but you're telling me differently, that's fine. I just feel like this is maybe next to Valley Green on the Wissahickon, is that right?
Yes.
This might be the second prettiest place in Philadelphia to get married. So let's get some marketing, a caterer who can market, and this place would be jammed. I feel.
Yeah,
And it's
that's why
interesting
people
that you have.
didn't want it, yeah.
Oh, it's, I don't know.
I mean,
If the walls are falling down and it takes that to keep it moving, there's a lot less stress in my household.
There is a lot of stress, thank you.
Just seems like you could make ends meet with this beautiful venue if needed. Second question, and then I'm.
So Aaron, can I just address that
Sure.
question there? So the Queen of Hearts actually has multiple locations, and, you know, this isn't about Donald, but, cause he was great, but, they have more, like networking across the Philadelphia, Delaware
Yeah.
Valley region, so I think that that's helpful.
Good.
So I think we're seeing that come to fruition. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. I don't know how much, so I've heard $13,500 a year tax relief for this facility. How much was the pool and the hedgerow? And how much will our taxes increase?
Well,
I think
I'll
Rose
just,
Valley taxes are quite reasonable, but.
I'll just mention that Hedgerow basically stopped paying the taxes. They just weren't making it, they weren't even paying us. And so, the pool.
But they legally are now.
Oh, yeah, now they.
Now they have, there's no legal obligation to pay taxes because they're qualified as a charitable nonprofit. So we couldn't collect taxes from them even if we wanted to, is my understanding.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so there was no revenue there, fine, and
we're thinking it might have been 5,000 for the pool.
Yeah.
The pool
Per-
hasn't
per
paid
year.
taxes in the last 5 years at least. Yeah, they've been abated every year for at least the last 5 years, so
Yes.
that's a non-starter.
And now they're permanently exempted.
No.
What you would
Okay.
like now to.
Again, not to, I quibbled on this at the last meeting. They're exempted by current ordinance.
Right.
They're not permanently exempted.
Right.
There's a difference. If we change the ordinance, they won't be exempted.
That's right.
Right.
So the question before us, and I know we just got a bunch of financial information, we just got a bunch of information verbally, and I want a bit of time to process it. But the decision that we need to make, and I hope to make it at the next meeting, is one, do we abate the folks' amusement tax for this year? And two, do we abate it permanently? Do we amend the ordinance again, or do we just repeal the amusement tax ordinance? So I think those are the decisions before us. This is not on our agenda for action tonight, so I would like to do that either next month or the following.
And it might depend on snowfall. I mean, if we were hoping for a year like last year where we had very low snow plowing and salting expenses. But this year it looks like it's
Right,
gonna be pretty heavy.
Not trending well, Sheriff?
Not sure.
That was my question, where will the money come from? I mean, it's an unfortunate timing that the budget was just passed in December. And this is coming up after the budget for this year was already passed with all the things, that we were going, expected income and expected expenses. Now, we can hope that we don't have to pay a lot in plowing and salting, because that's a big expense for the borough. Really, I was surprised how big it is.
Yeah.
But it's a little out of our control because there just has to be money to pay the bills.
So I see it, we hear it as of two
Yeah.
parts. One is this year, and then the second part to that
Yeah.
is the one that,
Permanent.
Right. Just how to figure it out, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, so moving back to the agenda as before you, we'll go to environment and EAC. Leonard?
Can I repeat everything I said about roosters?
Yes, please.
Well, please
That
do.
was a joke.
Excuse me, not that we don't want to participate in the rest of the borough business, but.
You're welcome to go.
That's
Yes.
all I'm asking.
Oh.
You're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome.
Just to check.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like a folk meeting when everyone leaves after the people have voted
After
in.
the vote.
Yep,
Thank you all.
sure.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so as regards the deer management program for hunting in Todd Morton Woods Preserve, this year, one individual who's authorized to hunt was authorized only for the month of January. We didn't address the issue for the 2 weeks in the past that was allowed between Thanksgiving and Christmas. 1 buck and 5 doe were harvested by our hunter. There is, I think, some consideration being given by the EAC to recommend to Borough Council that hunting be allowed also in Chadwick Preserve next year. The harvest of 6 deer is a drop in the bucket in terms of the number of deer that are here in our borough, and
I had 6 walk across my yard this morning, and I'm pretty sure they stuck their tongue out at me.
I've counted 12 on my neighbor's lawn across the way at any one time last year. So, I mean, they do migrate, to be sure, but the number of deer is hugely out of balance from an environmental perspective, which is why the Environmental Advisory Council supports this as minimal effort to balance things out. So that's just an update on that. The EAC's annual native plant sale is scheduled for May 10th. And we've coordinated that with the folks so that the parking is not a problem and we're not going to be interfering. We have what we call it's now an annual Free the Trees weekend. This is an interesting experiment of governance or communication or education. We've been talking about removing English ivy from trees at the EAC for 5 or 6 years now. We've been doing the announcements in the borough. I see wonderful neighbors and people all over the borough have ivy on their trees. Then I see other people who are spending thousands and thousands of dollars to take down trees that have ivy on them because the trees have died. And we're just going to keep at it. We're happy to come on people's private property and cut down the ivy. We're making incremental progress. Each year, we've done like 100+ trees. And once the ivy's cut down, for the most part, the deer prevent the ivy from ever growing back. If at least in Todmorden Woods, I know this from living next to it, we cut down ivy off of every tree that we could find in the preserve, and it's never come back. So, and on your own properties, this ivy, when it grows up the trees, it sets berries. There's no berries on ivy when it stays on the ground. It has to go vertical in order to go to seed. Birds eat the seeds and then it repopulates everywhere. And it's better for your trees if the ivy's not on them, because especially in the winter, they hold ice and snow. They have a huge amount of extra weight that's greater than leaves would be, and then that puts them at risk of blowing over. And if the ivy tops the tree, it kills the tree. So we're going to keep at it every year for the indefinite future and hope someday that our borough, and it's also an invasive plant. It doesn't provide any nutrients or anything except to deer. Anyway, that's scheduled for April 5th and 6th. We have a workday and tree planting scheduled for May, and a variety of other things, but I certainly encourage everyone to participate in the native plant sale. It's a revenue producer for the borough of around $5,000 to $7,000. It's the best deal anywhere I know of in Delaware County. For $3, you can get native plants that are suited to this area. They thrive, they're great, they're terrific, and it's a lot of fun.
Okay. Highways, insurance, and technology. Done?
So nothing on highways and insurance this month. However, technology abounds. We've been busy since last month. We got a scanner for the borough office, which allows Paula and Lisa to get rid of the giant fax machine. So that should, with a little bit of a learning curve on the software for all of us, we should be in good shape. We just switched over, literally this morning, we switched over the phone system to a service called UMA, which is voice over internet. It drops our monthly spend on phone service from about $160 down to roughly $62. We got the phones from them for $30 each, and they're perfectly nice office phones. And then all of this contraption here is our new live stream system. We are testing it tonight. There's only a couple of people watching it. I'm already seeing some things I'm going to have to adjust a little bit. But all in, including a refurbished laptop, these lovely tabletop mics that I got from a guy on Craigslist, we are all in for less than $1,000. There's maybe a couple hundred extra dollars. Then the camera may have to be upgraded. It doesn't capture everybody, so sorry, it's only Bill in this way.
So we need to move Leonard down further?
Yeah. Out the room. So we might have to do a little something with that. I need to get a case just to put things in so that I'm not carrying it in a cardboard box. But functionally, it seems to be working. My reviewer on the other end says we are audible and visible. So starting next month, we now have a YouTube channel for the borough, and starting next month we should be live.
Good job.
That's great. Thanks for all of that.
That's great.
All right. Library, Catherine?
Yeah, I'm gonna make it short. I handed a handout to everybody, and that is from the Board of Directors meeting that was in January. That is all on the website. So if anybody's interested, go to Helen Kate Furnace, and on the website is listed the encapsulation of everything that we did there last year for the library. And just shortly, also quickly, Delco Gives Day last year was incredibly successful for everything that was in the borough. Hedgerow did it, the museum did it, Helen Kate did it, and so the Helen Kate actually ended up in getting over $32,000 in funds, and the Delco Gives Day unlocked an additional $7,200. So it's a lot of money that private individuals are giving the way they want to give, when they want to give, which is really a terrific way for all of the entities to make money. And then very quickly, the Board of Directors meeting was held on January 28th. That review is on the website. You can see it. The virtual author talks are coming up again this month. There will be one on February 18th, 2 in March, one on March 12th, and one on March 20th. The gal who is giving the talk on March 20th is a woman by the name of Clara Bingham, and I went to summer camp with her as a child. So that's my personal plug for Clara. But they are all really terrific author talks. It's engaging, it's interactive. If you have questions to ask the authors, you can send them in ahead of time. And if you miss the time, they are all recorded, so you can go back and see them. And the annual appeal is getting ready to go out, and that is a paper letter, and that is the library's biggest fundraiser, and that will be mailed out next month. That's it.
Great, thank you. Public safety, Cheryl?
Mine's gonna be even shorter.
It's a competition now.
What?
It's a competition for brevity.
Everybody's got a lot of stuff. I don't have a lot of stuff, actually, and so we're missing some things. We still have one traffic camera. I got the number of the person that Deb DeMasi used to be in contact with at All Traffic Solutions. I've left a message and sent an email. And I resolved to do that every other day until somebody just says, we're not going to do it, we're never going to, you know, what is the problem? So I was glad to thank you, Paula, for helping me with that information. There's no updates for Town Watch. We have, last month, we had a police report, but no fire report. And this month, we have a fire report with only one EMT visit, so nothing really happened. Nothing to report. We don't get any more information than what's shown there. But with the change of our assigned state trooper at retiring, we have not been given a contact name, and it seems that the messages that I'm sending to the barracks are I expected to have the reports. I should have contacted them earlier, just doing the last few days. But Deb DeMasi said she used to just go to the barracks and just show up and introduce herself, so I think that's maybe what I need to do, is just to go over and say, hi, you know, small but mighty, let's keep in touch. That's it.
All right. Planning, Shannon?
Yeah, so we have just a bit of an update on the pathway that Bill and Matt are going to walk with PICO along the path to talk about timing and the trees and their projects there, because it's a pretty big part of the timing for the rest of the path construction. There are ongoing talks with the neighbors along the path and about their concerns and about adjustments to be made to the plans. So that's progressing. Bill, you have a couple of things that we need to approve for advancement with Matt Hoopman.
Right, so there are subdivision plans and some conservation easements. Construction easements. So we need Borough Council to approve the preparation of subdivision plans for the Cedars. They're gonna give us a small amount of land that the Boy Scouts actually built the trail on. They don't wanna own that property because it's a liability for them. It's a relatively small amount of land. but we have to do a subdivision plan for conveyance of that little bit to the Borough of Rose Valley. And we've talked to the Thomases, they don't want to own the borough right-of-way. It's going to have this path on it, that's a liability. The rest of it is PennDOT road, that's a liability. So we're going to do another subdivision plan for the conveyance of the borough right-of-way to the Borough of Rose Valley. And the borough engineer usually does those things, and we need approval from council to have those subdivision plans done. You want to do that first?
Yeah. So is there a motion to approve Matt Hootenman to prepare those subdivision plans?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Too slow.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Now, you're calling it a path, but is it gonna be, like macadam or cement or whatever?
The plan
What's
is,
it gonna be made of?
the plan is for it to be macadam.
So wouldn't it be a sidewalk?
That would be
Well,
cement.
Wouldn't it just be like more simple to call it a sidewalk instead of keep like telling everybody it's a path because it's not a path?
Right, when we go out for bid, we go out to get grants. The grants we have gotten are greenways grants, and they want it to be called a trail. So our plans say it's a trail, a grant application said it was a trail. We've called it a walking path, and,
I was just wondering.
yeah.
Just a quick question, would the borough be responsible for grass cutting or shrubbery maintenance, or whatever associated with those two subdivisions? Pieces of-
Well, the Cedar property doesn't have any grass, it's all, English ivy and pachysandra, and it's path, so cedars no. The Thomases, it's basically gonna be the road, a little, and it's across the street from Pew Park. If there is grass cutting, the people who cut Pew Park will just go across the street and maybe cut the little, dividing area of grass between the edge of Rose Valley Road and the macadam trail. And that's about it, it's not very
The
much.
answer is yes, sir.
But just to be clear, if the borough owns it, no one else is gonna maintain
It's
it.
us.
It's gonna be us.
It's gonna be us.
Okay, so the answer to the question was yes.
Yes.
If we wanted to shovel that path or sidewalk, we would do that.
We would do it. These two properties are easy because they'll be on borough property. Pew Park is a real borough property. So we approve the
Okay.
subdivisions to be voted on?
No, so it's, motion's been made and seconded. Any other comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carries 7-0.
Kelly's opposed.
Okay.
You'll be glad when I leave. I just wondered, PECO's coming in to walk with you. What about PennDOT? Do they know about this?
Well, Pico's coming on February 24th. Matt, Paul, and I are gonna walk with them, and they're gonna talk about which trees they plan to take down.
But this is also because they're putting big poles down Rose Valley Road. They have new wires.
PECO is.
PECO is. They have new wires that they want to strike.
Can't stop
And
them.
so they're coming to walk the road because we want to see where these poles are gonna go and what trees are gonna be
But
affected.
since it's a state road, does PennDOT?
Well,
It
that's,
does,
it's a,
PennDOT knows.
it's a very good question, and we've been advised all along, if you can possibly do it, stay out of the PennDOT right away, because once you get involved with PennDOT, it's a whole nother kettle of fish.
Okay.
They used to be, we've heard stories where we would go to a meeting with PennDOT, and they would show up with 24 engineers and technicians, and we've been told by our consultant that it's gotten better. PennDOT has realized that paths are a good thing, and they need to get with the program. But fortunately for us, on the advice of Matt, we are staying out of the PennDOT right away, so,
Okay.
no problem.
Bill, quick one. Rob Laird, is there a map of the trail? that
Yes.
is Publicly available?
Right, and I have a copy right back here. And it only goes from Woodward Road to Buttonwood Way that we got funding for. But I can show you after the meeting, we have the plans. Teresa?
So just Teresa Flynn, White Highway. So just from the previous question,
Well, PennDOT knows about it, but they don't need to review it.
Because we're not in there right away.
Right.
So can I ask how much is what you just voted on? What is the cost for these people to come in and for the assessments that are gonna be?
How much is Hootman's subdivision plan gonna cost?
Is that the question?
Well, you know that you're having, Picos coming in.
Because coming into.
Because it's totally unrelated.
Is there any cost that's associated with, when you talk about, to Cedars and to Thomas's and to purchasing that, like, what is the cost?
We're
no
not
cost.
purchasing it. They're donating those parcels. The cost to us
Yeah.
will be the engineer preparing the subdivision plan.
And what does that cost?
It,
Less than $1,000. I mean, I don't know what he's gonna really charge. Probably less than 500 because we already prepared the plans for the trail. He's just taking off, simplifying it down to boundaries.
I mean, how many thousands of dollars have we already paid this? Is it Matt Hoopman?
Matt Hoopman?
Yeah, to do the plans? I mean, how much was that? Was that like 20,000?
no.
No, but if,
The first one was 20,000.
No, the consultant that we hired, that we had grant funding for, I think, Bill Thomas, was a total of 20,000. I don't know what we've spent on Hootman.
right, I'd say a Hoopman's 12,000 or something. I don't know exactly.
But the subdivision has to be approved by whom? The county?
Us, the borough.
Huh?
The county reviews it, gives us advice, but our planning commission will look at it and advise Borough Council, and then Borough Council renders a decision. Okay, the next items, say
Did
what?
we vote?
We did.
Yeah, we did.
So the next items are construction easements, temporary construction easements to make it safer and easier for us to do the work. Instead of working from Rose Valley Road, Cedars and the Thomases are agreeing to let us work from their house side of the property. And the Cedars are letting us come in and we have to take down some trees, regrade the hillside. So they're gonna give us a temporary construction easement. And it enables us to work on the path that's in the adjacent right-of-ways or the adjacent Pew Park property and regrade, install landscaping. So there's a construction easement for the Cedars and also for the Thomases. The Thomases are gonna give us a construction easement for the 15 feet towards the house from the borough right-of-way to help with construction and regrade.
And
They want-
replant the hedge.
And they want a hedge. They want a replacement hedge planted and some trees, replacement trees. So and we've already worked with G. Guy Smith to prepare the construction easements, which are pretty straightforward. But we need approval to enter in an agreement with the property owners.
So is there a motion to enter those two temporary
question?
constructions?
Does Rich?
Let's get
Oh,
a
okay.
motion on the floor.
Let's get the motion on the floor.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
What is the cost of the trees the borough will be buying? What's the cost of the trees the borough will be buying?
Well,
for those homeowners?
it depends on which trees Pico's taking down.
To ask that question differently, does the funding for these construction easements come from the grants? Or does the borough have to pay for them?
You mean for the preparation?
Yeah, whatever
The
type of
easements are-
remediation work has to happen for
Oh,
these construction.
There's no cost associated with the construction grants.
The easements.
The construction easements, temporary construction easements, there's no
No cost.
No cost, other than preparing them, which G. Guy Smith.
But if you're taking, if you're taking trees down and doing some regrading,
That's part of the
those
path.
are costs. I just was asking, is that part of the grant funding?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
Leonard?
So I have a question. So I would expect that the easement obligates the borough to indemnify and protect the landowner from any harm or damage that occurs. If if a fire is started on as a result of the work on the easement, and it burns down their house, that's gonna be on the borough. Now, that is a remote risk, obviously, but my point is, we presumably have to alert our insurance carrier that this is an expanded scope of liability that the borough is accepting by entering into these easements. So I would think we need to have this covered under whatever policy we have.
I will just say that we've done this many times, the latest being Todd Morton Drive for a construction easement from a lessee to fix up the embankment.
We're also not the ones doing the work. It's gonna be contractors, and it'll be contractors that carry the insurance.
And we.
So long as, right, so long as somebody has the coverage.
It's all insured.
Yeah, we did not
Okay.
tell our insurer because it's covered elsewhere.
Well, it depends if the construction company has the coverage and covers the borough, that's fine. I just wanted to have that clarified.
And that'll be part of
Leonard,
our-
I think to the extent that our insurance is implicated, most general liability policies include coverage for things like indemnity that you take on under contract. So you don't have to specifically notify the insurance
I
company.
just wanted to make
No,
sure
no,
that
I'm
was
just,
true.
I'm just explaining.
Yeah.
So
No,
let me
you're
explain.
telling me that, I know that's typically the case. I wanted to verify.
Hang in there.
When we put this out to bid, one of the requirements for the bidders will be that they carry the appropriate insurance.
And naming the borough as an additional insured.
Correct.
Okay, that's all.
Rich?
What's the construction easement for the Cedars property? You said for Thomas it's 15 feet. What's it for the Cedars property?
Well, it's about, it goes up their driveway about 75 feet into
So
their
that's why
property.
We're gonna repave the whole driveway?
No, we're gonna
because-
repave the first like 80 feet of their driveway.
Okay, 'cause I told them it was 80 feet of driveway being done, so their easement's going all the way up their driveway to almost their house.
No, not almost our house, it's going up 80 feet, that's not even close to our house. And it's also 70 feet wide towards the Thomas's property. So it's actually a very good space for the construction people to work in. You know, they can lay down equipment, they can bring in cranes if they need to, or things to grade the hillside, and it's a very nice work area. They're very, I'm very happy they're letting us do
So I just
work in their
wondering why
property.
the driveway's being repaved, the whole driveway. but
Because we're
that's
gonna
the
tear
whole-
that driveway up.
That's the whole easement, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
May I ask an oddball question? We're gonna have a trail. The only picture of a trail that I have in my head, there's the one down near, down toward the mill here, right outside of the entrance. And then the other is up near the train station. Those two trails that I'm aware of. My question though is, in the borough creating a trail, is there a liability created to the borough for injury, vehicular or otherwise? Or will these trails be close enough in the line of sight? Are people gonna be able to safely pass one another? Are bicycles gonna be allowed, et cetera? Is there any liability that's anticipated in that regard?
You wanna handle that?
Well, we have insurance for, there's an act, it's called the Municipal Subdivision Tort Claims Act. And that act sets forth the limitations on people being able to sue the borough for any topic, any issue, any damage. And we have insurance that covers everything within the Municipal Subdivision Tort Claims Act. So we're covered for everything, everywhere that's lawfully brought against us. So this trail won't change any of that. We're covered. It's not gonna raise our rates, for example, or it's just not gonna change anything.
Okay, you understand my concern.
I do.
though. I mean,
I do, but
you're creating a new throughway.
But people can-
inviting people to travel in a different mode.
I will
than
be
they
glad to
have.
give you a copy of the Municipal Subdivision Tort Claims Act, which is many pages of garbage. But the bottom line to it is, it sets forth each and every one of the things that people can sue us for. And a lot of the stuff that people think they can sue you for, they can't. In addition to that, there's a cap on what they can recover from us, depending on the kind of injury or the damage that was caused. So we're covered two ways by the Act, and we're covered by our insurance under the Act. Did I get that clear?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as, you know, the borough.
Oh, it's a good
feels
question.
secure, that's great.
Everybody, these days, everybody worries about people being sued for the dumbest stuff. But yes, we're on top of that all the time. Paula and I talk about it regularly. Our insurance people talk about it with us regularly. And council, whenever we have a project that might cause some of these things, we address that with the insurance companies to make sure that we're covered. So I know we are.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Teresa?
Just a question on that, when you said that we were covered.
I can't hear you.
Oh, you're the first person that ever told me you can't hear me because my voice carries, that's just, anyway. You said that we were covered, can you provide clarity on what amount we're covered up to?
The
Well,
amount that's not the amount that we can be sued for under the Municipal Tort Claims Act.
Right.
So that's
For
a
our
ceiling.
insurance, for our insurance.
But the insurance covers up to that amount, and the law precludes any recovery beyond that amount.
Right, but what is that amount?
I think it's
It
$500,000.
If 500,000 is the maximum anybody can sue us for under the most egregious claims. There are other issues at smaller levels with smaller coverages, but 500,000 is the big one.
Okay, thank you.
And we're covered for that. And because it might be multiple people involved rather than one person, we have insurance covering the multiplicity of people. So our limit is not 500,000. Our limit is 500,000 per person, but we have insurance coverage in the millions for that.
Wonderful, thank you, that's really helpful.
We're nowhere near anything that would cause that kind of number, but we are. This is one of Paula's real strong suits here, that she pays close attention to all of these insurances, so we know exactly what's going on.
Thank you, that's really helpful.
You're welcome. And if anybody has any questions about that, email me anytime, gguysmith@aol.com. I'll answer any questions about insurance. I can send you copies of the acts. I can send you copies of our insurance policy. Anything you want to see. You're the people that Borough Council represents, and I work for council. So if you tell me you want something, get it to council, and they'll tell me to get it to you, or get it to me. I have to get the president's approval to respond to those things. So when we get an email saying, "Guy, do this," I get a hold of Matt, say, "Matt, people want me to do this." Matt says, "Go ahead and do it." I get back to you.
Great, that's really helpful, thank you.
Anytime.
Okay, so the motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That carries 7-0. So is that it for planning? Okay, thank you. That takes us to finances.
Status of funds report is in your packet. The treasurer reconciled the 5 bank accounts as of the end of January. The balances are there. There was a large disbursement out of the road improvement fund, which has taken our balance in all accounts down to $283,000. The income report is in your packet, a very small amount for this, for January, $4,800. Nothing to speak of, nothing large there. I assume the tax revenues are just starting to come in.
Right, right.
Bills for
Bills for approval, they come from two funds. The first is Highway 8 fund. And there's $11,000 invoice for several plows work, road work in mid-February. It does not include this week's event. Actually,
So what were what's the $130,000 road improvement fund disbursement?
That's from last year's road work
Okay.
to Innovative Construction. They did, for tax purposes, they wanted to put their income into this year, so they held on to that check for like 4 months.
So we approved dispersing it months ago, but
Months
they're
ago.
just finally.
August.
Okay.
Cashing the checks.
Okay.
August, it's August.
All right, so we'll have to keep an eye on the spend out of that fund as it's measured against the account balance. Which get disclosed. The second batch of bills for approval from the general fund. So the bigger ticket items were quarterly payment to the library and also a payment to an architect for building permit services, which the borough receives revenue from, or is satisfying the recent bill from Lynn. And otherwise, the rest of the bills are pre-extended issue.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the bills for February 2025?
So moved.
Is there a second? Leonard, you got it.
Finally.
Any comments or questions on the bills?
Just have one, I'm just to understand, on the bills for approval for the salting, it seems like, when there's one date, it's, like about $1,000, 1,300. So for removal on 1/16/25/27. But then for 2 dates, it was the first item in the list is $74.50.
It's probably plowing in addition to salting.
Thank you. Okay.
Would you say
So the
that's
other
true?
ones were just probably salting days.
Paula, would you say that's true?
All right. Okay.
Okay. All in favor of approving the bills? Any opposed? That carries 7-0. We dealt with the Rose Valley Folk Amusement Tax earlier, so that takes us to manager's report. Mayor's report?
I also have nothing to report.
You're losing the brevity battles here. That takes us to solicitor's report. We dealt with the SRV issues earlier, but is there an update on the fence ordinance?
I've received nothing from anybody about anything on the fence ordinance, except the mayor stopped by my office earlier and we had a talk about whether or not we should have penalty provisions and where they should be. And section 3231 of the state code says that we really should, if there's gonna be a penalty for whatever, we should have a penalty provision in the ordinance, which I don't have. So I feel like we should, if we're gonna do that, we need to put a penalty provision in there covering the amounts set by our other ordinances, which I will do. But the question is now, what does council want to do with the fence ordinance?
I thought where we left it, there were provisions that you were taking out, but you were gonna add the deer fencing
Right.
part out. And I don't think we've seen a draft with the deer fencing.
Oh, I thought I
Am I
sent that. If I
misremembering
didn't,
that?
I'll send it.
I didn't see it.
Then I have to send it.
Okay.
I
I think it
Okay.
I'm positive in my own false little way that I did that, but I didn't apparently, so
Okay.
I will do it.
So we'll
That's
carry
fine
that
with
over to
feedback.
next
Yes,
month.
and I'll get it out, and I'll get the penalty provisions in there.
Okay. All right, so that brings us to the end of the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn,
I
Leonard?
have a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I would like to hear what the solicitor's report is on SRV. It was kind of alluded to earlier, but I didn't get a definitive.
I'm sorry, the school in Rose Valley,
The zone.
they're parking cars on the lot at 15 School Lane, and we talked about waiting until they have their meeting with the public on the 17th? On the 17th? 18th, to see what they're gonna do about that, and see if they reach a consensus with the neighbors. The position of Borough Council informally is that council, if there's no further agreement with anybody in the neighborhood, if there's still objection to it, that council will get in touch with the school and deal with it directly with them in terms of how council believes they should or should not be parking there. The second one, which is the acquisition of 2 Roylandcroft, they already did acquire that, and that has a house on it, and they intend to rent that out, which they are entitled to do. And so the question there is only one of whether or not that will remain a tax rateable or whether it will be an exempt property because they're an exempt school. We've taken a position on that in our discussions that it's, if they rent it out and not use it for school purposes, that it's still a tax rateable. I have agreed that I will get in touch with the Delaware County Board of Assessment and make sure that if there's any possible change to that, they will notify us before the change is granted, so we would have an opportunity to object or participate in the decision.
Thank you. Back to 15 School Lane.
Okay.
Is it the borough's assessment that that is a non-conforming use of that lot for residential lot?
It's
The violation.
they're
of the
parking
zoning?
cars on property zoned single-family residential.
Correct.
Parking cars on a single-family residential use is an accessory to the residential use, which is the primary use. If there's no residence, then the question is, can they have an accessory use without having the primary use? My belief is, although we don't have it directly addressed in our ordinance, either prohibiting it or approving it, if there's no primary use as a single-family residence, because there is no residence, then you can only have accessory uses subject to the fact that you have the primary use. So that suggests to me that this use would be improper under the code, because there is no primary use. There's no residence on that property. It's been torn down, so there's nothing but a vacant lot with cars parked on it. There's no coverage issue, and we have pervious and impervious provisions that say you can only have a certain amount of impervious cover on your lot. That's not the question. Most of it is gravel or grass, so that's not a question. The only question is, can they use the accessory use without having the primary use that's, in my opinion, necessary to allow them to have the accessory use? So we're gonna wait and see what happens at the meeting with the people in the surrounding properties. If they reach some sort of a satisfactory consensus with everybody, we stay out of it. If they don't, then council will direct me as to how they want me to proceed, the council and the mayor.
Kelly?
So number 2, Roylandcroft, did that ever come up for sale?
No.
How did the school even know that it was?
So what they told us is that they have contacts with that owner. That owner's sort of a member of the school community. Their kids went there or something. And they reached out to the school to say, we're gonna put this on the market. Are you interested in it? And so they came to agreement before it was ever listed with a realtor.
So the borough would never, I hope, allow that house to be torn down and then there be like a street put through there.
So it's not.
Cars to be going in and out of
Right.
Roylandcroft and School Lane.
So Roylandcroft is not a dedicated street, so they would not be able to do that, is the advice that we've been given.
Okay.
Because that was my primary concern, one of my primary concerns as well.
If I lived over there.
Sure.
We are.
I know, I feel bad for that.
There are a number of properties that get sold without ever going on the public domain. You don't see them in ads or whatever. A lot of private sales take place. The way we find out about those sales is we get our share of the transfer tax, so we know the property was sold because we get money out of it.
Right.
That's how we know.
Yeah, I was just curious. You're always looking to see the houses for sale.
More and more of them are being sold sort of word of mouth privately. Property prices are way up all around here, and so.
It's always been that way. Used to.
Okay, but the people know that if they get in touch with certain people privately and give them an opportunity, they get their own little bidding war going on the inside, and they make money. So
Save on the realtor fees too. All right, so.
You say that it's going to be rented for now,
surveyed both properties.
I'm sorry?
If you're buying a house to set up as a rental property, why would you need the survey?
I have no idea.
They aren't,
Could they seek rezoning?
They could, and they came asking at one point to rezone 15 School Lane, and we told them we're not doing that.
because it was only 1 acre, they need 2, at least.
And that's what 2 Roylandcroft makes it.
Well, they could do a reverse subdivision and take even 15 School Lane and take it in with the rest of the school property.
It doesn't change the zoning on 15 School Lane, though.
Right.
Well,
Even though
with
that
the
crosses
zoning
the lane?
request.
It's
What?
not contiguous.
It doesn't change the zoning. The zoning is parcel by parcel throughout the borough. So just because they create that, if they were to merge that lot back in,
As
it
part of
doesn't
the-
change our zoning map. It's
Just for
still gonna be
argument's
zoned
sake,
single family.
If we do not reach agreement with the school, and I don't think it's likely we will, what enforcement mechanisms does the borough have?
I'm sorry,
For the parking on 15
Yeah,
School?
For
For
15.
15.
So the borough can send them, a zoning violation. We can cite them for being in violation of our zoning ordinance.
And what does that mean? Is that a fine?
It's a fine.
Is that a slap on the
he
wrist?
goes in front of the district magistrate, and the magistrate deals with the decision of what the penalty would be for the violation.
Which might be, I'm gonna just say maybe $500 a day, but for every day there's a
Continues.
violation, it continues, so.
But it's a pain in the neck process. So, our hope is that it gets resolved amicably, but if not, then the borough will need to decide what action to take.
We could write them a letter, we could contact them in person, we could issue the citation first, not do those things. I would think because of the school's importance to the borough and the borough's importance to the school, we would probably try to get in touch with them in person and have some kind of a face-to-face meeting and go over all of this to give them a chance to avoid what Matt just referred to as the complicated process of taking this to court. If you get to court on this, regardless of what the magistrate does, that takes anywhere from 30 to 75 days to get decided. And then all they have to do is file a notice of appeal, and we're in front of a judge in the Court of Common Pleas. They're running about a year before they get the case heard. About a year. So that's a mess. We
Could
prefer
pay
not
for
to
a
get
lot
into
of
that mess.
repairs to the building here if you're $500 a day, though, just saying.
Say it again?
You could pay for a lot of building repair here at $500 a day as long as that's outstanding.
But we would have to file a citation. We would have to file a citation every day.
Each day.
In other words,
We're paying him to do that.
if there's a violation on Thursday, we file the violation. If they violate on Friday, we file it again. If they violate on so by the time we would get to court on the first violation, we'd have 35 more running along the trail right behind it. That's a real pain. And judges tend to make their own decisions about how they're gonna handle this and whether they're gonna agree to allow us to get the $500 a day in the violation, or $200 a day, or waive the fines on the other ones. If it is a nightmare. And whenever you go to court, what people don't realize is it's not asking for what you want that's important. It's knowing that somebody you don't know is gonna make a decision you may not like that's important. So you have to present yourself in a way that you keep out of the downside risks and the downside possibilities, first of all. And secondly, there's an expense to all of this. You're gonna need to bring people in and have them testify and prove that there was a violation. And sometimes it means we need pictures every day, that we need somebody to go and take the picture so we can prove our case in court. It's not a question of me saying, well, I saw cars there. We're gonna need proofs. And that the more complicated it gets and the more serious it gets, the more proofs you're going to need, because they're not gonna roll over and give us $500 a day because they like us. They're gonna fight us. So we would prefer to do all of this amicably and get it resolved in a way that's satisfactory to all the borough residents, because that's who council represents, the people in the borough. If that's not possible,
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
My grandfather said it this way: I'll be as nice as you let me be, and I'll be as mean as you make me be. You pick. And that's kind of where we are with things like this. And I've always felt that council takes the position of trying to be as nice as they'll let me be and still solve the problem for the people that council represents. And this council is very good at being a true representative body. There is no secret going on behind the scenes here for anything. As I said in prior answers, anything you ask of anybody, they'll give you, a complete answer, including the ones that say, we haven't done it yet. But you'll know where we stand, and you know where council stands. You heard Leonard give that wonderful explanation about what's going on with the roosters and the chickens and things, because that's exactly what's going on. There's no secret to that. So everything you ask, my job is to provide everything that council lets me provide to the people and give good answers to these things and study the questions so that I do them real hard. And that's my job.
Did I hear you ask for a motion to adjourn?
I did ask for a motion to adjourn. Is
So
there?
moved.
Joe, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you. Okay, we be done? I'll get that.
So,
I don't know where the hell I put it.
taking meeting minutes.
I swear I sent it out. I don't know where it went.